What kind of person calls the cops on a child's birthday party? The kind who storms into your backyard, phone in hand, screaming about noise violations while kids splash in a pool and parents laugh over lemonade. That's exactly what Karen did. Her shadow looming over our sunny afternoon like a storm cloud nobody invited. Her name wasn't really Karen, but it fit too perfectly. She was the HOA's self-appointed enforcer. A woman whose presence could sour a summer day faster than a power outage. And on that sweltering July afternoon, she decided our pool party was her personal battlefield. I was 16, standing by the grill with a spatula, watching my dad flip burgers, when she appeared at the gate, her face redder than the watermelon slices on the table. "This is unacceptable," she bellowed, her voice cutting through the pop music and laughter. "You're disturbing the entire neighborhood." My dad, ever the diplomat, tried to smile, but I could see his jaw tighten. The party wasn't just ours, it was hosted by the governor's family. Our neighbors, whose daughter Lily was turning 10. This wasn't some wild rave. It was a kid's birthday, complete with a bouncy castle and a piñata shaped like a unicorn. But Karen didn't care. She saw a chance to flex her power, and she took it. The air felt heavier as she stood there, her floral dress clashing with her scowl. My dad offered her a burger, hoping to defuse the situation, but she waved it away like it was an insult. "I'm calling the authorities," she snapped, already dialing. The kids in the pool froze, their giggles fading. Lily, the birthday girl, clung to her mom, her eyes wide with confusion. I felt a knot in my stomach, not just embarrassment, but anger. This was our home, our moment, and she was turning it into a spectacle. My mom stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Karen, let's talk about this. It's a kid's party, not a rock concert." But Karen wasn't listening. She was too busy narrating our crimes to the 911 operator noise. Too many cars parked on the street, and something about the pool violating HOA regulations. I glanced at the governor, who was standing by the pool, his tie loosened and a lemonade in hand. He looked more amused than worried. But his wife, Sarah, was fuming. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, loud enough for Karen to hear. The stage was set for a showdown, and I could feel the tension rising like heat off the pavement. What nobody knew yet was that Karen's call wasn't just about noise. She had a grudge, one that went deeper than HOA rules or misplaced lawn ornaments. Months earlier, at a neighborhood meeting, Sarah had publicly challenged Karen's proposal to ban backyard pools, citing safety concerns that Karen dismissed as hysteria. Sarah, a lawyer with a sharp tongue, had won the argument, and Karen hadn't forgotten. This pool party, hosted by the governor's family, was her chance for revenge. She didn't just want us to turn down the music. She wanted to humiliate us, to prove she still held the reins in this neighborhood. As the sound of sirens grew closer, I saw my dad exchange a look with the governor, a silent agreement that this wasn't going to end quietly. The kids were ushered inside, their wet feet leaving prints on the deck, while the adults braced for whatever came next. I stood there, spatula still in hand, feeling like I was watching a movie where the villain had just lit the fuse. The police arrived faster than I expected. 2 officers stepping through the gate with the kind of weary expressions that said they'd rather be anywhere else. Karen greeted them like they were her personal security team, pointing at the pool, the bouncy castle, and even the piñata as if it were evidence in a crime scene. "This is a disturbance," she declared, her voice shrill enough to make the officers wince. My dad stepped forward, calm but resolute, explaining that this was a private event, fully permitted. and hosted by the governor's family. The officers exchanged a glance, clearly recognizing the governor, who waved casually from the deck. "Ma'am," one officer said to Karen, "this doesn't seem like an emergency." Her face flushed an even deeper red, and for a moment, I thought she might explode. But then came the twist nobody saw coming, not even Karen. The governor's son, Jake, a quiet kid who usually stayed out of the spotlight, stepped forward with his phone. "I recorded everything," he said, his voice steady. "She's been harassing us for weeks. This isn't about Nosy, it's personal." Jake's words hit like a thunderclap. He played the recording, and Karen's voice filled the air, ranting about those people and how they thought they were above the rules because of their connections. The officers listened, their faces hardening. It wasn't just a petty complaint anymore. It was a vendetta laid bare. Karen's confidence faltered, her eyes darting between the phone and the officers. She tried to interrupt, claiming it was edited, but Jake held up a hand. "It's timestamped," he said. The governor stepped forward, his amusement gone, replaced by a quiet authority. "Karen, you've crossed a line," he said. "This stops now." The officers nodded, suggesting she leave before things escalated further. For a moment, she stood frozen, her phone still clutched in her hand, as if she could dial her way out of this. But the weight of the moment was too much. She turned and stormed out, her floral dress swishing like a flag of defeat. The party resumed, but the mood was different, less carefree, more defiant. We weren't just celebrating a birthday anymore. We were reclaiming our space. The sirens faded, but the tension lingered like smoke. The kids returned to the pool, their laughter a little forced, while the adults whispered in clusters, glancing at the gate as if Karen might return with reinforcements. I couldn't shake the image of her face, furious, unyielding, but also strangely fragile, like she'd built her whole world on being right and couldn't handle being wrong. I wondered what made someone like her tick, why she'd go so far over a pool party. My dad pulled me aside, his hand on my shoulder. "Some people need control more than they need peace," he said, and I nodded, though I didn't fully understand. "Not yet." The governor and Sarah thanked Jake for his quick thinking, and he shrugged, embarrassed by the attention. But his recording had shifted something fundamental. It wasn't just about saving the party. It was about exposing a truth nobody had wanted to face. Karen wasn't just a nuisance. She was a bully, and bullies thrive in silence. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the party wound down, Sarah called a meeting with the neighbors who'd stayed. We sat in a circle on the deck, the pool lights casting a soft glow. She didn't mince words. "This can't happen again," she said. "Karen's been running this HOA like her personal kingdom for too long." The governor nodded, adding that he'd already spoken to the HOA board president, who was as fed up as we were. But the real confrontation came the next day, at an emergency HOA meeting called to address Karen's behavior. I wasn't supposed to be there, too young, my mom said, but I snuck in, sitting in the back of the community center, watching as Karen walked in, her head high but her eyes nervous. She didn't know Jake's recording had been shared with the board, or that half the neighborhood had heard it by now. Sarah stood up, her voice steady but sharp, and played the recording again. The room went silent, every word Karen had spoken echoing like a confession. Neighbors shifted in their seats, some nodding, others whispering. Karen tried to defend herself, claiming she was protecting the community, but her words sounded hollow. The board president, a quiet man who rarely spoke up, finally stood. You've abused your authority, he said. We're voting you out. The vote was swift, almost unanimous. Karen's face crumpled not with tears, but with a kind of stunned disbelief, like she'd never imagined losing. She stood, grabbed her purse, and walked out without a word. The room felt lighter, like a storm had passed. But it wasn't over. The next week, signs appeared in her yard, for sale. Whispers spread that she was moving. Unable to face the neighborhood she'd tried to rule. I saw her once, watering her roses, and for a moment, I felt a pang of pity. She looked smaller, deflated, like the fight had gone out of her. But then I remembered Lily's frightened face, the way Karen had turned a joyful day into a battle, and the pity faded. She'd made her choices, and now she was living with them. Months later, the neighborhood felt different, freer. Somehow, the HOA rewrote its rules, prioritizing fairness over control, and Sarah took Karen's place on the board. The pool party became a kind of legend, a story we told at barbecues, each retelling more triumphant than the last. But for me, the real lesson wasn't about winning or losing, it was about standing up. Jake's recording, Sarah's courage, my dad's quiet strength, they showed me that bullies only win when nobody speaks. I started paying attention to the small injustices around me, the ones I'd ignored before, like the kid at school who got picked on or the neighbor too shy to speak at meetings. I wasn't a hero, not by a long shot, but I started speaking up, even when my voice shook. And every time I did, I thought of that day by the pool, when a kid with a phone and a lawyer with a spine took down a tyrant in a floral dress. Life moved on. Lily turned 11, and we threw another party, this time without sirens or uninvited guests. The governor brought a bigger piñata, and my dad grilled enough burgers for half the neighborhood. As I watched the kids splash in the pool, I realized something. Karen hadn't just lost her power that day. She'd given us something. She'd shown us what happens when you let resentment fester, when you choose control over connection. And in her defeat, she'd reminded us that community isn't about rules, it's about people. I looked at the wooden fence where someone had painted over the faded words from that chaotic day, leaving only a faint outline of HOA Karen called 911. It was a scar, but a good one. A reminder that we'd fought for our joy and won. And as the sun set, casting golden ripples across the water, I felt a quiet pride not just in our victory, but in the kind of neighborhood we were building. One where nobody would ever feel small again.